Out of the Well is a series where young adults take a swing to discover the deeper meaning of life through different personal encounters. They will be sharing about what they have taken away from adulthood, from their perspectives. Moving beyond chasing clout, how did age change us? How did our next decision lead us to our next big thing? How can we uncover our untapped potential, or how can we embark on a journey of learning and relearning? How can we challenge ourselves to be a better version of ourselves yesterday? Like the Asian folktale of Frog in the Well, we know that there's always something more for us to learn beyond what we already know. Join us and our guests in each episode as we dive deeper into our true selves and purpose, taking a leap out of what we know and jumping out of the well and moving on to the next ahead, one well at a time.
Okay, hi everyone, welcome to the podcast, Out of the Well episode 2. Okay, my name is Keith and today we have JJ and Crystal with us again. Yep. Okay, and so today we're going to talk about this topic known as resilience. Okay, so the first question that I want to ask the both of you, maybe JJ first, is when it comes to resilience, do you think it is nature or nurture?
Yeah, actually this question is a tricky one because there's multiple ways to look at it. So there's a school of thought that goes like everyone is a blank slate. So if you put two babies through the same situation, for example the same environment, let's say they go to the same school, they meet the same friends, they have the same parents, and they face exactly the same scenarios in life, then both will turn out to be exactly the same, right? There's another school of thought whereby we all intrinsically have our own personalities, and depends on that, it actually changes. So go back to the same example, the two babies will turn out differently. Yeah, maybe I can say that imagine if, let's just say that their parents they had an abusive father, right? So one can turn out to be very timid, one can turn out to be very submissive,
right?
And the other can turn out to be a bully, you know, or even an anti-bully advocate. Yeah, so it really depends.
I see. That's interesting. Okay, so but what about Crystal? What's your view on that? Do you think it's more due to nature or is it due to nurture?
I think for me, I would be standing more towards the nurture stance. I think just because complementing to what JJ mentioned, right? I think everybody, we go through different stories in our lives, right? Whether or not you are a blank slate or whether you're complicated, I think the nurturing part further complicates like how we view life. And sometimes, you know, things might be difficult. Sometimes because you have loving parents, I think it builds a different environment for you to be in. And then that mindset that of people that you interact with, right? It could be a teacher, it could be your grandparents, your guardian, or even like people on the street. How you see them interact with people, it kind of forms your opinion as well. So I would say that like resilience or even any sort of like personality, it's actually a lot more driven by nurturing than nature.
Right. That's good because I also think that it is due to, there's a certain percentage where it's due to nature for sure, because I believe that we are all born with maybe because of genetics I think in biology there is a certain set of genes that actually codes for your personality, but we cannot go too technical about that because people don't really want to hear about that. But it is a research done, you can go and find it out. But I do think that it is maybe 80% due to nurture, because when people go through, let's say, tough times, it can build a lot of resilience in you. For example, when we were in army, right? When I was in army at least, the amount of, let's say, stress or the amount of restriction we had, right, at that time, even a simple like 1 hour early book out, right? It made me so happy. You know what I mean? But right now you tell me 1 hour early book out, I don't know what's that right? But at the time, simple things like that, eating McDonald's, it makes me happy. So that is one example of how nature shapes a person. Nurture shapes a person. The environment actually brings out certain characteristics in you. Yeah, so that was my opinion. Do you guys have any like experience like this, maybe throughout your growing up, throughout your life, working life, maybe schooling life, that kind of change your view or your personality as well? You guys have, maybe JJ, you have something like that before?
I guess maybe we can go back to the topic of upbringing, right? So we can talk about like environmental factors. Actually, since young, my dad was he was an advocate, you know, of emotional control. So to him, like, you know, everyone value different personality traits.
Yes.
But the fact is, how I view it is, there's always a there's always two sides of a coins, you know. So the thing is, everything is a double-edged sword. So he would value emotional control to be something that is very useful in life, right? And then he would teach me how to control my emotions, right? And what is he actually teaching me is actually to suppress my emotion.
Right.
Yeah. So the thing is, I mean, there's sometimes where he would make me angry, but he will call me not to be angry. You know, okay, it sounds
push
a
a
bit,
button.
yeah. Okay, it sounds a bit like a bit torturous, emotional torture, right? But it's not that bad, I think. Yeah. But I guess like all these really I mean, if you just go back and analyze, right, and do some psychoanalysis about your childhood, and then you see like certain traits actually stem from some of the experiences. You know, like it may not be once, it may not be twice, but it's a constant thing. You know, like
Right.
things that like frequently happen to you. You know, on a frequent basis, right? Yeah. So what that impact actually has on me, right? Is actually now when I see things, right? Okay, but to be honest, I don't know is it that particular event, but I'm guessing is that now when like for anything that happened in my life, I would always think first before I feel.
Right.
You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get what you mean.
So that's why like most people would feel first. I believe. Yeah. But very few would try to think first. So I would think first. It's a bit weird because I'll think, then I will feel later. Like when I go back home, then I actually feel sad.
Like a robot. No?
Yeah. Like a robot.
A robot that has feelings at night. No?
Yeah. That's right. So most of our friends actually thought that I was like a bit heartless or like no emotion or stuff. You know, like how can this guy be so logical in this kind of scenario? You know, when most people would just feel sad or cry, right? Yeah, but it's not true because I do cry, but only afterwards when nobody's watching at night.
After you have thought through all the
yeah, correct. So yeah, I mean that's I also think that's one thing weird about me. Yeah.
Okay, what about you, Crystal? Do you have an incident or incidents that?
Yeah, I think like on the nurturing part, okay, like so for like, myself, right, I'm a vegan, right? So I think like vegan, so it's like a diet, right? I think all this is by nurturing, cause like for example, like my parents sparked off like veganism as a loving act, right? And it happens that you see even with my nature and my brother's nature being instinctively different because we are both like born at different timings. But I think the way that they nurture nurture us, right? It gave us the idea, help us to form the idea that veganism is because of love and not anything else, right? Because like if I would say that some other parents that raised us with the same veganism concept might not have this output of us willingly wanting to be a vegan. It might be through fear, right? Like you don't do this, then what will happen, kind of thing. But instead, it was like very like willingly that we are accepting to this and we understand the whole concept. And like for example, I think one thing among my friends, right? I think it's the concept of marriage, for example, right? So for example, like I find that when people, of course, like not everybody will be in a family that is complete, and that parents will have different like relationship demographics and dynamics, right? And I think that all these, right, it somehow nurtures the child's ideal of marriage. How is it like do I go into a marriage looking for a loyal friend who can be with me to the end of life, or do I look for a partner who can value add to me, or do I look for a partner to rely on? I think all these are.
Or do I even want to get married?
Yeah. I think all this it's like nurturing your thoughts in like simple ways. That's why I always like talk about like earlier, like how you interact with people. Like for example, if you're growing up and you keep seeing like for example like relationship failing, chances are you will nurture your thought as like, okay, relationship's not gonna last, then what for do I get married?
Lesser hope in
exactly. So like luckily for me, I think because like my parents have always been, I wouldn't say that every marriage will be like smooth sailing, but I think they put in extra effort to portray to their kids that, you know, like things can be worked out in a way like there isn't like any violence or sort of things. I think that really helped us, like me and my brother, have a better like concept, or like I guess less tainted, right, concept of marriage and how it should be like. Yeah.
That's very, very interesting. Because I think that you are the average, there's a quote like, you're the average of the 5 people that you hang out with. And I think that really sums up the power of your nurture or your environment.
Correct.
So there's this saying as well, if you want to be a millionaire, you got to hang out with millionaires. So you got to see what they're like, you got to see the things that they do, so that you understand a little bit more about the kind of jobs that they do, or the kind of businesses that they run, the kind of traits that they have in order to become that kind of person. Yeah. And so personally for me, right, I do think about this because once we understand that environment is so important, we try to, I think it's very powerful when we try to create our environment. I think a lot of people do not realize the power we have in terms of selecting our social circle, number one. And number two is, let's say you're stuck at home, all right? But if you're a student, you actually have the ability to go to school, to go and study. And that, to me, right, actually changes your perception of productivity as well. Because maybe you stay at home, then your environment is just your bed, or maybe for me, I have an Xbox right in front of me and a controller.
Right.
A bit dumb, I go and buy this controller stand that actually put my Xbox controller on top of the stand.
Nice.
And I can see it every day.
Attracting.
Yes.
Yeah, so actually, it looks good but it's a very stupid move because you just want to click one button and then you start playing. Yeah, so to me, environment is important. So sometimes what I will do is I'll go to school and I become a lot more productive over there. Yeah. So on this train of thought, right, of environment, creating your own environment, do you guys have any thoughts on this? Yeah, maybe we can go with JJ.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like if we understand all these and we are self-aware to begin with, right? Because like to know all this, you have to go back to fundamentals. Like, how do you know what affects you? You have to understand how you feel.
Yeah.
You understand about yourself.
Correct.
And you have to be self-aware enough, right? Some people call it woke, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Woke.
so the thing is, to understand all of these, then you can fully utilize like all these, techniques. Like actually my roommate called it cornering the mind. Yeah. So
Elaborate more on that.
So the thing is like basically you give yourself lesser choice, right?
For your goal.
Yes, correct. Yeah. So there's this theory because I believe it's from this book. I'm not sure. Okay, don't quote me on this. But the thing is it's a book where they say that willpower is weak or something like that. You know. So the whole concept is you shouldn't rely on your willpower.
Willpower is weak.
Yes,
you shouldn't
correct.
rely on your willpower.
Or basically the whole
That
concept.
actually makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not to rely on your willpower, but to actually look behind that, like what shapes your desire.
Control your system.
Yes, correct. So you go back to your framework, control your inner desire, right? So the thing is like if you don't have a phone,
Interesting. Yep.
would you even think about using your phone to check your Instagram, to check your maybe your Telegram, right? To talk to people, to socialize, to view into other people's life, to just wander around the internet, so many interesting things, right? But if you don't even have the phone to begin with, would you even have these thoughts?
Right.
Do you even need to control yourself? You don't need to control yourself.
Right. True.
Yeah, so there's a difference between controlling, like restraining your temptation versus no temptation to begin with. Yeah, that's why some people lock their phone up. Yeah, lock their phone up or give their friend
Or
their phone.
do not disturb.
Yeah,
I find that super useful.
Yeah, do not disturb or like hide your phone somewhere,
Yeah.
Yeah, so by that question, right, like what I did is I would usually just hide my phone under the bed or this kind of thing. Like just make it so difficult to
Whatever
get
works for you.
Yeah, whatever works. Because the thing is like the more resistance you put like between each action, right, then the harder it is for you to do that.
I see. Okay. Crystal, what about you? Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think adding on to JJ's point, right, about like willpower, I think all these actions, right, actually pulls back to discipline, right? Like how much discipline a person has. Like it's also discipline to say, I'm gonna hide my phone every single time before you start your work. I'm gonna set do not disturb every time I put my phone at work, right? So I think all these things, I think essentially it boils down to discipline. On you being able to prioritize what is important to you at that time. Even though I would say like, for example, how successful you are depends on the group of friends around you, but life is a lot more than that. So I think it's about prioritizing hours to see how much hour you want to put into something, and then having the discipline to follow that priority list rather than rather than the small task, right? Because task thing is like you have to do it anyways, but it's always the bigger picture in terms of discipline. Like I know that I have limited time in my life, and this is the priority I have from this hour, 40% maybe to work and 30% to family. The discipline to hold that, I think that is what's important.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree with the both of you. I think for me, right, I am in love with this word known as introspection. I totally love this word. All my close friends probably I will guess they will know that I love this word, because you see, everything that we have talked about earlier on for the past 5 minutes, right, or so, has to come from a place of self-awareness. Or JJ calls it woke. Alright, so JJ close friends will know he likes to use the word woke. I also.
Yeah,
we're close friends. Okay, but anyway, so it comes from a place of self-awareness. So we're gonna talk a little bit about this topic of self-awareness, how you guys actually get self-awareness. Personally, for me, there will be maybe once a week or twice a week where I need to really get down to my own thoughts. And like what Crystal's mentioned, not everyone's goal is not to be as successful as possible, right? Some people's goal is as simple as, I just want to spend more time with my family. For example, I just want to spend like 2 days a week, just hang out with my family, go to Gardens by the Bay. I think we can eat out soon, right? Yeah, so you're going to eat out, that kind of stuff. So it depends on your goals, but the question is, how do you know your goals? Right? How do you know what you want in life? So you have to introspect, you have to spend some time alone and think about all these thoughts, maybe pen them down. So for me, I journal. I believe some of you journal as well, and maybe we can share a little bit about that later on. So for you guys, this topic of self-awareness, can I know how do you guys actually become so self-aware? That you guys are able to start a business, you guys are able to control all these things and live a purposeful and meaningful life. How do you guys even get that sense of self-awareness? Maybe you can start with JJ.
Okay. I mean, there must always be a reason, right? Why you are woke, or self-aware, right? Yeah. So the thing is, like, personally, I come from a relatively poor family, right? So the thing is, I think there's no choice to begin with, right? Yeah. So the thing is like there's this quote, like you don't know how strong you are until you don't have a choice,
Right, yeah.
So the thing is, when your back is forced against the wall, right? Then then the only way is to
you have to survive.
Yeah, you have to survive, right?
Think of ways to.
So I wouldn't say like, oh, I'm like very good. I discovered on this gem, or I just don't have a choice. Yeah, maybe I'm privileged to be poor. I can say that, right? So the thing is,
that's a very interesting phrase actually. The viewpoint is privileged to be poor.
Because if I wasn't put in this situation, right, I wouldn't have like think so critically, right? I wouldn't have like really introspect and really really think things deeper, and start to really think about what I want, and then how do I achieve that, and then what's happening around me, how do I learn faster, how do I get better, how do I just basically succeed faster, right, than an average person, right? Yeah, so I guess like it's really your environment, that really shapes you.
Yeah, so I think for me I would say like self-awareness. I think Keith brought it in a term whereby it's supposed to be helpful, right, to your like entrepreneurship journey or whatever you're working on, be it school, work, or life. But I think sometimes I do have this issue, right, which I didn't realize till like a lot like recently, that I'm too self-aware, right? So I think
that's interesting.
Yeah, right. Good. So I think later on in the topic we'll talk about like our different personality types, right? But before that, I think there's this Enneagram test that I recommend everybody to take, right? Basically, they form you into like different type of personality type of what you are in different metrics lah. So, for example, are you an achiever, or are you what sort of things? So I think mine was like a high like type 3, so I'm like an achiever, right? So what happens is that I'm overly self-aware about how people think about me.
Right.
So the problem is that being overly self-aware, I'm always concerned about, okay, if I do this, right, what would this person think of me? Not in a way whereby I want to portray, like, for example, materialistic items, but I think a lot of people think self-aware means like I wear branded goods and everything, but I think I care a lot about how people see me as a person. I want people to see me as a good person, be it like whatever I do, I want to do my best so that people have a positive image of me. And I think that actually somehow constrains what you want to do, right? Because sometimes taking that bravery to have opposing opinions is difficult. It's only in recent terms, after I met my partner, that I learned that, like, maybe you should let things go a bit and then be authentic to who you are, and then from there find your passion. So I think that's just something I want to touch on, self-awareness, because a lot of people think that self-aware is good, but overly self-aware is like another part of the spectrum whereby it starts to restrict you to things that you would do.
Yeah, I mean, it brings me back to my point where everything is a double-edged sword. There's always two sides of a coin. right? So I think even for self-awareness, there's this like optimal level.
Optimal level, yeah.
That's true,
optimal
that's
level
true.
of self-awareness.
You cannot be too
right?
self-aware.
Anything past that, is actually damaging to your life.
Then being
Right.
not self-aware.
Yeah,
is like,
exactly.
oh.
Yeah, that's why I'd rather not be self-aware or. Yeah, so I really agree whatever she said. At least you see, she got to be self-aware to know that she's overly self-aware.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's very true.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense. Like I think in everything in life, I guess, like you cannot have too much of one thing.
Yeah.
I would say that being self-aware, yes, definitely is important. Why is it important? Because the worst thing that can happen is regret, right? Like one of the worst things, to me, my own opinion, is that the worst thing that can ever happen to me is 20 years down the road and I look back and I did something just because I want people to think of me in a certain way. For example, one example I can give is since young, secondary school at the time, I always wanted to be a doctor, right? I told everybody, I was that kind of person, by the way. So later we're going to talk about personality changes.
Yeah.
So I'm a very different person in secondary school, and I believe there are people that have changed over time.
For sure.
Okay, so personality can change. But in secondary school, I told everyone, I told all of my kukus, all my uncles, all of them know that Keith want to be a medical doctor. And the reason at the time, I didn't realize, but at the time was because I have a cousin who is a doctor. And he was viewed very highly by everyone. And so I crave for that sort of respect. I crave for that sort of validation, And that was why I wanted to be a doctor. Now, if I had, I'm not saying I got the brains to do it, but if I had pursued that dream, and right now I would have been in medical school, I'm going to tell you I will regret. I will regret studying medical school. I will regret paying $100,000 for school fees and the rigor that comes with academics. And then I want to start a business, and then now I'm like, oh shit, I'm already in medical school. So, back to my point, I think that being self-aware is important because then you prevent yourself from having this kind of regrets in the future.
Alright, actually that's a very interesting story you shared just now. I was just wondering, back then when you were hoping to be a doctor and you were just like sharing to the whole world, that you were really like looking forward for that, right? Yeah. At the point of time, what sort of personality traits do you have?
Yeah, that's a good question. At that time, okay, for those of you who do not know, right, there's this test known as the 16 personality test. And basically it's based on Isabel and Myers-Briggs test, MBTI basically, and there are 16 personalities and they have different letters that signifies different things. For example, you have the first one is E and I. So E stands for extroverted and I stands for introverted. So someone who is extroverted draws energy from the surrounding. So they need to be around people. That's one. Another one is they need to see things come to fruition, like externally. So they are a very external kind of person. At that time, I was an ENFP. So I was extroverted, intuitive, feeling, and perceiving. So I'm going to talk a bit about the feeling. So because after certain events in my life, I changed from an ENFP to an INTJ. So it's like almost a 180 switch but I'm just going to share some examples. So the F to the T was the largest change that I could remember. So when I was in an F, right, everything I did was about trying to feel good, or rather based on feelings, okay, but not necessarily bad things, because at that time I was very in tune with other people's emotions. So when I go into a room, I could sense the emotions of someone. I could tell whether this person was feeling down or feeling upset, and I had this ability to talk to this person, right? Because I know this person, or let's say example Crystal, today you look a bit down, so I'm going to talk to you about this. Yeah, so I will move in. But when the personality switched when I was in the army period at the time to INTJ, so now I'm a T. So the way I process things right now is through thinking first. So I'm like JJ, so we think first before we process it. And sometimes the feelings get bottled up. So at night, then I'll start to feel about things. Yeah, and so that was for my case.
Yeah, so I think interesting with Keith, right? I think we have similar personality types now. So I think I was also like quite a big change. So I was ESFP actually. So then we changed to INTJ. So like ESFP is like entertainer personality, right? So I think I experienced that for a period of time since probably I think Sec 2. So basically we had this Adam Cool Camp thing. And then like I started to do that test right? Like it was Adam Cool or some tribe camp, I can't remember. But basically we did that. And that was like tracking, like typical like girl stuff I feel. Then we track, then we discuss. So I think ESFP was like I was ESFP back then. I felt it was because like I didn't really have a lot of worries in life. at that time. So I think we weren't mature enough, right? So I think everything I was extroverted because like I was like student council president in school, and then like everything was fun for me, right? Because like I'm like, oh, I can join camps, right? Then I get to like do like cool things like flag raising, this kind of thing. Like it was quite fun at that time. And then everything was like feeling because I was in like performing arts. So I think it touched
very
a lot.
artsy.
Yeah, very
ESFPs are
artsy,
very
right?
artsy,
Very artsy.
yes.
So I like performing then, and then after that, I think in poly, I think that was where the change came, right? I took a diploma in accountancy and finance. Not that it wasn't a good diploma, but I guess I wasn't passionate about it.
Right.
So when I was in there for 3 years, I think that kind of like shaped my perspective to be more realistic. Like maybe school isn't that fun, right? This is when shit gets real. And I was a bit scared also, like, oh my god, what if this is my life for the rest of my life? It's like crazy, man. It's like numbers and everything, right? So I think that one kind of like formed my entire like thought, right? And then also, I wasn't so used to the entire environment. People in accountancy and finance are technically less artsy. I would dare to say that because of their traits, right?
Yes.
Opposite from mine. So the friends that I made there are definitely towards more introversion, which kind of like pushes me from extroverted to introverted. Because like I mentioned, I was self-aware, right? So I think that made me self-aware. Like I'm being too talkative, or I'm being too loud. I'm having too much feelings. Everybody is so calm. Then why am I doing this, right? So it kind of forces me to fit into the crowd in a way, right? So I wasn't really being genuinely myself, but thankfully because I had a CCA in dance, so that kind of kept a bit of that self alive, right? That self, that artsy
part of you.
That's right. So I find that was what kept me sane.
Right.
So then I took the test again. I was complete opposite, and I think everything was further accelerated through like work. So I think that was when I think the society demands for you to be a bit more on the ball, to have more realistic like mindsets. So I think I slowly moved into an architect, which I think it helps my work, to be honest. And I think as we grow older, regardless of what personality type you fall into, ultimately the self-awareness part, bringing that back, it helps you gain a better perspective of who you are as a person, and the people you interact with will remind you of who you actually are, and that kind of like blends in together. So I wouldn't say that the 16 personality type defines who you are, but it helps you scope who you were and what you are now, but it doesn't say what you are as a person genuinely.
Exactly.
So that's something I want to share. And I think also like I want to hear from JJ, because I like for me, I did it for a long time, right, the test. Then I know you started like pretty late, like 2018 or so. So were there any changes? Because I think like it's a short time, right, from then to now.
Yeah, correct. Alright, so unlike both of you, I actually got woke pretty late, you know. Yeah, that's right. So the thing is, before that I was still like dreaming and like in my la la land, you know. It was fun, you know. So all these problems didn't like surface to me,
Right.
you know. But then once it surfaced to me, then I mean we gotta change ourselves, you know. There's this saying whereby when we are no longer able to change our circumstances, we are challenged to change ourselves, right? So the thing is like during 2018, when I took a test, I was a ESTJ.
Yep.
And back then I think my personality is already quite solidified already, you know. Yeah, I think the only time it changed, right, was during NS, you know, when you get to see the worst of human nature. Right?
The worst of human nature.
Yeah, correct. I mean, it's a good thing because now we know, right? Oh, actually, humans can be that bad. You know? Yeah, I mean, I'm talking in like for all humans, like even myself also. Right? I mean, everything is. No one wish to be bad, you know, but it's the circumstances that they're put
Forces
into.
you to
Yeah, that's right. So you just get to see the worst in human, right? Then I become an I, so I become an ISTJ, and then I turn back to an E again once I get out of NS. Yeah, correct. But then but so the thing is, for my personality is quite fixed. It's just that how I utilize these traits, you know, to my advantage, you know. So back then maybe I'm more of an entertainer, you know, like I'm more of a people's person. I just like joke around, and then
very fun to be around.
Yeah, just get everything is just for fun, right? And now I just utilize that for my work, you know, because like when working, right, like actually it is a chore, you know, if you view work as work, you know, if you view like for example this podcast, you know, if you view it to be something like mundane, you know, oh shit, I'm gonna film this again, I'm gonna like talk for hours, I'm gonna have like 100 NG, right? Because personally I have a lot of NG, right? You would know, right? Yeah, correct. Yeah, but then
we can show some clips next time to
behind the
audience.
scenes.
You should have that. Right. So the thing is, but if you view it from another perspective, like, oh, actually, I'm just here to interact with my friends, you know, I'm just here to like just say anything you want, be yourself, you know, express your thoughts, opinions, and maybe share some knowledge to the world, right? So if you view it from this perspective, then I think things will be much easier. Yeah.
I think that's great. I agree with 100% with what both of you have said. I just want to point out one thing that Crystal has mentioned earlier about how when 16 personalities, or rather when you discover more about your personality, it is not to define yourself, right? I think sometimes we get overboard and then we try and think that, wow, we are like INTJ, then we are like, we're supposed to be like this. It's not that you're supposed to be like this, it's you are like this, and all these tests is there to help you become more aware that these are your traits. Now, because when you know these, then you can know your own intrinsic motivations as well, and how you work. Like personally for me, so I'm an INTJ, I believe Crystal can totally relate to this. We prefer to work alone. We don't like to, I don't like to, in a sense, like group projects. I honestly don't really like it because then you have to understand the group dynamics, then you have to wonder how this person is feeling. And,
well, that's the fun part.
Yeah, that's the fun part for you.
For
But
you.
you see the difference. So sometimes I have these thoughts where I ask a question and then I ask myself whether is it the right time to ask this question, because then we have, as INTJs, we have this a bit socially awkward, I would say. I don't know if Crystal can relate to this or not, but we are sometimes socially awkward in a sense.
Yeah, I think we are more like not say socially awkward, like we don't know how to socialize, right? I believe like Keith and I, based on our work, we have to socialize a lot.
We learn to.
Yeah, but it's we have to, and we know that we need to. But I think it's more of the extra effort, right?
Yes,
that we have to
yeah.
put, because
You
I think
know
we are
that,
very
correct.
comfortable with ourselves. We know the timeline that we work with, right? And I think because our personality trait also tend to be a bit more productive in that sense, like we cannot
We place productivity as a very
the
high
highest, right? So
priority,
everything that we do need to have an output, this kind of thing, like very boring. But because of that, we have very, very good controls of our lives. I would like to think that way, right? We know what we want, and then we can set our timelines. But then the thing is that when you work with other people, like you said, then I have to evaluate, like, am I being too pressing? Am I like chasing them too much, right? Are they finding me irritating? Then back to the self-awareness thing again, right? So it's like a cycle, just adding on to what Keith has mentioned.
Interesting. For an ESTJ, right, JJ, how would you, how does that like help you understand more about your working style and maybe your intrinsic motivations as well? Like understanding the personality traits of the ESTJ.
I mean, okay, personally, I like to work with people. Yeah, I like to do like anything with people. If
It's not wrong.
If I can, you know. Yeah, I mean, not wrong, but whether is it sustainable is another question, right? Because like no one have all the time in the world for me, right? Or like I cannot be with like anyone like at any like forever, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is like but then like the thing is for all this personality trait, right? Like it's not really like a binary thing, you know. It's not like you're introverted then you cannot be extrovert, or you're extrovert then you're not introvert, right? So I believe there's a reason why all these tests are not really true in a sense, you know, because there's multiple flaw or multiple ways to see this, right? So I will view like this may be your default state, but it changes according to time. Yeah, so the thing is like if I have to be introvert and I have to get my work done, then I don't have a choice, right?
Right.
Because like going out with someone, like definitely it will be too fun, you know.
Right.
Or I need to find someone that's boring to do my work. Yeah, good. So the thing is like so it will be very difficult, you know. I gotta find like the right people to do the right thing, you know. Then you also be a bit messed up, you know, because I'm just like using them. But no, I genuinely like care for my friends and stuff. Yeah. So the thing is like all this, in my opinion, like it happens on a timeline. You just like moving, you know,
right.
Like maybe introverted at this point of time, extroverted at this point of time, and then it's also not like binary, you know, not like two boxes.
Correct.
It's on a spectrum.
It's a spectrum, yeah.
Yeah, it's a
So you
spectrum,
can you will change according to the environment.
And to add things, you know, to make it more complicated, it's also not like on just one scale, you know, not just one dimension, because instead of like introversion or extroversion, right? Like how do you define that? So back then you talk about the
drawing energy.
Yeah, drawing energy, right? Yeah. So being extrovert, it means you get energy from people, right?
Yeah.
But I think is that there is not
the only
definition. Yes, correct. So there's multiple ways to say it, you know.
Correct.
So that's why it's so difficult and talk about like personality trait.
I see.
By the way, there's multiple tests that we mentioned, right? Yeah, so previously you talked about Enneagram, there's MBTI, and there's also like these. You talk about Tetra, there's like 4 different elements, and then there's also Ocean. There's like so many different type of personality tests.
Yep.
But the interesting thing is like psychologists to this point or in time, right? They have not they have not actually came out with any personality test that is fully accurate. Yeah, in that sense. And there's also multiple flaws in each and every test. Yeah. So the thing is, I think it's very important for us to really question, whatever we are taking, like all these are important.
Yep.
No doubt about it. But I would say use them as a guiding tools, to help us understand more about ourselves and the people around us. Yep. And things like self-awareness, in terms of in that sense, like this is a very important trait that all of us have agreed on. However, that's not part of the test, and I would say that's the premise of the test, because if you're not self-aware, then whatever results that you have provided, to take the test even, it wouldn't be accurate.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's
Right. Alright guys, thank you for listening to this podcast. This is our episode 2, and we will see you guys next time. Bye bye.